Hello, fellow freaks and purchasers of pre-order fun. Let's shut the door on the Dying Light review. So as you saw, I did a preliminary look, first impressions, if you will, and basically a review in progress of Dying Light. I've now spent more than a week playing the game, and I'm going to go ahead and give you the final verdict, which I think you won't be surprised. So we're just going to jump into graphics. We'll jump into the start of the game's problems, which is the fact that before this game got released, it had more changes than Bruce Jenner. I mean, there were issues with the DLC. Was it going to be free? Was it not going to be free? They had issues with reviews. Were you going to get them? Were you not going to get them? Here you go. Oh, no, we're pulling it back. You don't get them. There were all these kinds of problems. When the game got released, I played the game. I played it on all three systems, and I really enjoyed what I saw. However, one of the issues is, with a PC, you can always throw power at it. Pretty soon you're going to have two fucking plugins and a Tesla coil. So I figured what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a lot of that time on the consoles. This next couple days, I was just going to play on the consoles and see what was occurring. Also, I got some very scary reports from PS4 owners who were all telling me that they were having tons of issues connecting. And then I went to other forums, multiple forums in fact, and there were issues galore. So it started to get me a little nervous. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to throw myself really into the console versions, and I'm just going to play, and I'm going to identify with those, and I'm going to play the PC version when I can, but mostly concentrate on those since they're all game complete. Graphically, I have to say, I'm fairly disappointed in the PS4 version for one particular reason. It still doesn't hit 30 frames, neither does the Xbox One, but it's missing AF filtering, and it's bad. I mean, there's some definite blurry texturing compared to the Xbox One version, and when you are playing those side by side at times, I actually notice blurry textures quite quickly compared to maybe other people, but floor textures, wall textures, there's definitely some blurring going on. Now, the Xbox One, on the other hand, doesn't hit the frame rate as solidly as the PS4. They both have frame rate issues. They both go sub 30. Neither are locked, which is, to me, pretty much unacceptable. In fact, I would have liked to see the Xbox just go to 900p and have it locked at 30 with that texturing. I would have actually voted without a shadow of a doubt for the Xbox One version being the best. However, as they go now, I really can't tell you which one I liked better because the frame rate issue I notice on the Xbox One a little bit more than the PS4, even though their frame rate issues happen at different times, which is once again one of those odd things where we're not quite sure if the CPU, because it's a little bit faster on the Xbox One, can handle some things, but the GPU power is more on the PS4 and it can handle others. But that lacking of filtering actually does bother me. It's something I notice. And that lack of frame rate is also something I noticed. So again, both versions pretty much a wash. Depends on if your image quality or if you want a solid frame rate just a little bit more of the time. And we're not talking a high percentage of the time either. Sort of sad. However, if you don't have the PC version, don't get me wrong. Both games I actually like the look of a lot. And here's why. Their artistic impression that they give you is just really good. The colored lighting that informs you that there's a hideaway, way over in the distance that's that light purplish blue, or the fire burning in a barrel, that orangish color, or the saturation turned to 11 during the daytime. The graphics just look really good. I love the color schemes. Now, let's be honest, it's like fighting the Baldwin family. There's a Baldwin everywhere, and you're out there fighting clones the entire game. That does actually bother me, and I really do wish that they had taken something like the Nemesis system from Mordor and put it in there and had different zombies or randomization system. Now, I don't mean Nemesis system in the fact that you fucking have a zombie that you half attack and then he comes back and he's got metal pieces on his face, though that would be cool. And I don't necessarily even like the Nemesis system that much, but what I mean by that, and it's easier for everybody to understand what I'm talking about, is that randomization of different enemies. I really do wish it had that, or let's be honest, Dead Rising 3, which did a really good job with randomization, and though you had a couple characters that look the same, the system goes in, it has a smorgasbord of zombies, and then it outfits them in random ways and sends them towards you. I really wish Dying Light had done that, because you do notice you're fighting the Baldwin family. It's pretty fucking crazy. So, graphically, all that combined though, I like the game. The game looks good. Multiplayer is great because, when you're playing a single player game and you're jumping and leaping and grabbing and it's all about parkour, the developers don't need to really worry about what you look like unless they have a replay camera. However, because you're in multiplayer in Dying Light, you can see the other players. And I have to admit, I was quite surprised that for the most part, aside from some clipping issues here and there or some collision detection, it actually looked like the other player was performing parkour, which I thought was great. It wasn't perfect, but it was much better than, let's say, Dead Island, much better than that. And that was really fun to watch. It was really cool to, and you'll see it in some of the videos behind me. If I get a chance, I'll put some up where it'll show some of those bits. Graphically, I will say I liked them all. PC, of course, is the highest. The two consoles, sort of a wash there. Little issues with each one. Now, sound, music, and voice. Well, I have to say, sound-wise, I was really happy. I really won't change much. There were a couple weapons that I was wondering about their sounds. They didn't really sound exactly true to what I thought that they should sound like. In fact, I guess the baseball bats were one of the issues. Now, of course, baseball bats are made of different things and different materials, and you can get different material baseball bats in the game. But some of the game's weapons just sort of sound a little sloshy. Sometimes they didn't have the bass where I expected them to be. But overall, I would say sound is actually still fairly good. Music, phenomenal, guys. This is old-style John Carpenter, The Fog, They Live. And it's such an homage to him. And I went and I found the composer who did Dying Light and found out that he's done other games. And I went and checked those other games. And it's so strange to see such a similarity despite massive genre changes between these two games. And you could sort of switch them in and out. Now, this is not a game that you would buy the soundtrack for unless you're an emo cutter. Let's be honest, it's just not. It's not one of those games where you just want to sit and depressed and look out your rainy window. But for a game, it's great. That title screen music, when it turns on, you just know. You have this feeling of, I don't even know how to describe it, like, it's just this awesome atmospheric cloud of sound. And it's just in the background, almost like rumbling thunder or something like that. And it gives you such an awesome feeling of what's going to happen in the game. Really, really love the music. Absolutely excellent. Voice. I have the same issues with the voice, guys. The voice issue that I have is the main character goes from being blasé to wishy-washy at different times and in times that mimic one another. And so instead of, I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's the voice actor. It's not his fault. It was great. He was just monotone because he's military. No, that's totally normal if he was. However, in the same situations, he can react completely like opposite ends of the spectrum. What that usually is, it's not the voice actor's fault for the most part. Usually that is the voice director's fault. It could be time, money, everything from getting the open space at a studio to record different voices if you find that voices aren't perfect. It does happen. Destiny had the same issue. It does happen. Main character, I'm not so hot with. I'm also not really in love with the military chick that he talks to. Her voice it didn't sound good. It didn't have any of, I guess, the overarching, it just didn't have the emotion I expected it to have or the overall impact that it was supposed to have. However, one thing I did like was the interplay of characters that are around your main character at the starting of the game. I really felt that there was a connection there with two characters that felt and reminded me a little bit of Far Cry 4's two main characters that you're dealing with all the time in a slightly different relationship, but still it did feel there was some kind of connection there that I really liked, and I was drawing similarities between those two and the two in Far Cry 4, and I thought that was really fun. Overall though, the voice is still really good. NPCs, some of them are great, and I really liked them. Now when it comes to gameplay, I spent a lot of time in multiplayer, and I have to say the multiplayer is just fantastic. It is a chaotic mess. It is just running and gunning and jumping off zombies' heads and fucking drop kicking and clothesline punching. I mean, you're doing all this crazy stuff. It's really, really fun. As you upgrade your skills, you get some crazy stuff, grappling hook and all that, and it really just has a very good feel to it. I love the amount of skills as well. It's something I mentioned in the original part of my review or my pre-review, which is that the skills just felt like they were all there for you to use and mold your character, and none of them felt wasted, and I stick with that. I think it's great. The gameplay itself, the one thing I do have a problem with, and we've talked about it in the thread of the original part of my pre-review, which is that I really have an issue with the length of time weapons last, even when you begin to get skills that make them last longer and mods that make them last longer. The weapons are sort of funny in these kind of games, these kind of zombie games. They do great on purpose, because that's just one more system that will keep a gamer engaged. However, when I'm hitting somebody with a crowbar or some kind of giant metal pike and it's falling apart after just a couple zombies, it does actually break a little bit of your, I guess, realism away. And though the game isn't super realistic, zombies are running around, it is at the same time a little bit bothersome that things broke so quickly. I do have an issue with that. I think there were other ways that they could have fixed that. It made it more enjoyable. But the gameplay has not changed since the pre-review. I like it. Almost everything there I really enjoyed. The parkour felt good. I love the fact that when you look up to jump at something, you lose all of that vision cone, and so now you get that feeling of, oh my god, I don't know where the ground is, and you remove the tank jumping of all the games in the past where you could just stare straight ahead and jump up onto the next level. Now you have to look at things, and I think that really adds that feeling of vertigo to some people's gameplay. Now when it comes to fun factor, man, I have to tell you, some of the quests are great. Some of the quests are really good because they change subtly as you're playing them. And one of the quests in particular was amazing. And I'm going to give everybody a spoiler alert if you haven't played the game. Leave and come back in 1 minute. So we'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. One of the quests I really started to notice as something that was really enjoyable and something that was different was the quest to go and find the car on the bridge. And when you get there, it fucking falls off the bridge into the water. And you have to sit there and decide, am I going to jump? Am I going to jump into the water? Now, I had done that originally before the pre-review. And now that I was with multiplayer, it was fun to see their reaction as it fell off. And both of us sort of froze, and I waited to see, and he was like, oh my God, we got to jump off. And it was just this cool action movie moment. And there's actually quite a few of those in the game. Even climbing the bridge pylons all the way to the top and then sliding on the wire down. There was something very action movie-ish about it, and that became really enjoyable. And many quests, well, not many, but some quests do switch it up or change subtly what's going on during the quest. And I thought that was actually really enjoyable. And it added to the fun factor. The multiplayer in the game is phenomenal. As long as you're not having problems, luckily I didn't have any. It's just really easy to get in and out. However, what did impact my fun factor, not a great deal, but enough to be bothered by it, was the tutorial. Now, a lot of people won't have this issue, but if you're switching between, let's say, systems, or you, for some reason, or if you start over, I guess, or if you lose your save game, that tutorial is too long. And, that's not a huge ding on the developers, but I figured I'd bring it up. That tutorial should be cut in half at least. The tutorial in Dead Island was also long, but it was nowhere near this long. It just felt like, oh my God, I got to go through that tutorial again if I want to play on this system or this console. It won't affect everybody, but it is one of those things that you're just like, oh God, here I go. Fun factor though, I don't think anything's changed. The game is incredible. It's really good. And there's one thing that I want to mention that it bothered me, but it seems to have bothered other people even more. And that's the fact that, when I first heard of 50 Shades of Grey, I thought it was a colorblind person's crayon set, and I was pretty disappointed when I found out it was a fucking movie. That's sort of the way I found out what the main boss was like. That's pretty much what I'm going to say. And I want to know what other people feel. I was pretty disappointed in that. Not as much as others that I've seen post about it, but I was somewhat disappointed, and I want to see if other people felt that way about it. So overall, I would say it's definitely a buy. It's a great game, super enjoyable. It's got the free DLC now. It's just a good zombie smashing game with multiplayer and with few technical issues, with the caveat that the PS4, at least in the past, did have a boatload of network problems. So that's it, shutting the coffin lid on the review for Dying Light. If you liked the video, hit like. If you disliked it, hit dislike. Peace out.